Kia ora and welcome to Cinema in Context, where we discuss all things film and the connections between. My name is Jeremy Downing.
I'm William Chen.
And I'm Sarah Watt.
And each month at Cinema in Context, we discuss two films, one current and one retrospective. With some connection, it could be the same director, the same actor, or a similar theme. This month we are discussing Thor, Love and Thunder, which came out this year in 2022, and Cabin in the Woods, which came out 11 years ago, 2011.
11 years.
11 years. The connection being they are both genre films jam-packed with all the things that genre could want. And they also star a little-known Australian actor called Chris Hemsworth. So, Thor, Love and Thunder. William, what have we got?
Thor, Love and Thunder, the latest film in Marvel's Phase 4, directed by our very own Taika Waititi. Details Thor after the events of Avengers Endgame, where he's with the Guardians of the Galaxy and trying to find himself. Things occur with Gore, the God Butcher, played by a menacing, snarling Christian Bale, and Thor needs to team up with his old mates Valkyrie, Tessa Thompson, and Natalie Portman's character from, earlier on in the Thor films, Jane Foster, to try and stop Gore from, as his name suggests, butchering the gods of the universe.
Nice. I think also Korg, right? We're going to mention Korg.
Oh, yes, of course, Korg, Taika Waititi.
Yeah, he's one of the key players in that crew. Well, Cabin in the Woods is a film that is written by Joss Whedon and directed by the one and only Drew Goddard, who I also believe wrote the script with Joss Whedon. It is a typical story of a group of young people that travel to a cabin in the woods, aka Evil Dead, and a whole bunch of genre 80s slasher movies that we know the tropes of very well. However, the film sort of twists this by opening and intersecting the story with a group of, government officials or some sort of private enterprise officials who have some sway or influence over the events that are happening to these young people. At the very least, they are surveying them through cameras and discussing their moves. And as the film progresses, we are kind of trying to both figure out what's going on and figuring out where our allegiances truly lie. So that's Cabin in the Woods.
Nice.
I just want to say that we will be spoilering both films, Thor, Love and Thunder and Cabin in the Woods. So if you haven't seen either film, you're probably in luck. No, if you haven't seen either film, then pause this episode and come back to it at a future date. I think it's fair to say we're going to have a bit of a rollicking chat because I feel strongly about these movies in various ways. But who would like to... Maybe Sarah, do you want to kick us off because you haven't had a chance to speak yet?
Well, one thing I can say is back in 2011, Cabin in the Woods absolutely knocked my socks off. And those who listen to our episodes about Scream will know, or the Scream franchise will know that I really appreciate in-jokes and meta analysis within films, and I love parodies of genres, and I absolutely loved and continue to love Cabin in the Woods because it takes the traditional slasher movie genre and not just sort of twists it around a whole lot, but makes just so many very witty, clever commentaries around it. By comparison, Thor, Love and Thunder, I thought was lazy and largely unenjoyable, but for an astonishing cameo by a rather large Australian actor about whom we shall speak forthwith.
There's a few...
Wait, large in terms of stage presence,
all
right,
of it,
Sarah?
All of it.
There's a few cameos in there. I mean, Melissa McCarthy was the one that really surprised me, as Kate Blanchett's Hela from the last film. I described Thor, Love and Thunder, and I believe Taika Waititi has influenced this description because he said something similar. But they got around a table with some 6-year-olds and they brainstormed all the things that they might want to see in a Thor movie, and then they put the whole brainstorm in the movie. And that's what we got.
Yeah, and obviously somebody said to him, hey, we thought that your character of Korg was really funny. Let's have more Korg. And so Taika, obviously really humbly and with some embarrassment, went, oh, shucks, okay then, if I must, and stuck himself in every scene with, in this instance, in my humble opinion, completely banal, unfunny, often mumbled and incomprehensible one-liners.
Well, here's the thing, Sarah. Would you rather have had Taika Waititi's character from Free Guy in this movie?
No, I would not. I would not.
That was terrible. I think Thor: Love and Thunder is an absolute ridiculous film. I couldn't believe what I was watching. I turned to Josh, my boyfriend, at one point and said, "What the F are you watching? This is
ridiculous good or just ridiculous as in...
Just ridiculous.
I kind of, what I did love about it was that it just knew what it was, and it wasn't like, what was the one we watched, the multiverse one? Have you seen it?
Yeah, Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange,
Yes.
because we talked about it with Billy,
But
right?
that, by comparison, which I watched the day after I saw Thor: Love and Thunder, Doctor Strange, the second one, I thought was incredible.
I didn't like it. Yeah.
See, like, what's up with that?
Because I just think they ruined Wanda's character. She's not a villain in my eyes, and they just made her full villain who has gone hysterical. But anyways, I at least I felt there was a consistency about Love and Thunder, which was bat-esque crazy consistency
Right.
that wasn't present in Midnight of Madness.
No,
Mayhem.
No, and it wouldn't be, not with proper Benedict Cumberbatch. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Dr. Wonderful, Strange. But okay, so you thought it was like, just like crazy as in, but crazy and okay.
Well, like when the kids started fighting, I was like, what am I watching?
See?
What am I watching?
For me, it was far before that point. It was the point where, for some random reason, you see a badly CGI'd kid's face like float in the air, like in a pool of gold.
Yeah.
And it was, honestly, ladies and gentlemen, one of the worst things I've seen on a cinema screen ever? Question mark?
Yeah, it was very weird.
What was going on? Why were the effects so cheap? Okay, I guess reading into some of this movie, you know, they filmed during COVID. A lot of it was filmed in the what's called the Mandalorian tech, right? The
the LED screens.
Yeah,
that
the
go around.
huge backdrop, which I can be used for some amazing visuals, as you know, seen in the Mandalorian and some of the Marvel shows.
And this was not one of them.
This was definitely not one of them. You know what it looked like? It looked like a bunch of people standing in front of a screen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what it felt like, and you know, regular listeners will have heard me lambast the Ocean's, particularly 12 and then into 13 films. What it felt like was a bunch of mates who have been doing this for a while now, charging us good money to go and see them have a fun time.
Goof around.
And I'm not having that. You know, and that's actually a little bit what Free Guy felt like. But let's not. Please, can we not talk about?
Free Guy was a better film than Fun.
Free Guy
undoubtedly
was at least thought through. It was just that Taika was annoying in that character.
That's true. Yeah,
he was super annoying in that character. But this just felt like it had tiny touches of let's make it meaningful between Jane Foster, who is literally dying of cancer, and let's get her back with Thor. And yes, there was the fun stuff with him, with his new weapon and the jealousy of the former weapon.
That is brilliant.
That was very clever.
Yeah.
So there were clever little moments. But, and as we sort of said before, Russell Crowe as Zeus was absolutely... I didn't even object...
We haven't said this before. We haven't talked about this, have we?
No, but I didn't actually say who it was. When I said that this large Australian actor was absolutely the best thing in the whole film.
I think you mean Chris Hemsworth.
No,
I think you mean facetious.
Russell. No, Russell. Even
a big lad.
I didn't even find him like objectionable doing a Greek accent.
Here's my question. Was his performance racist?
No, because it's Australian, and there are loads of Greeks in Australia.
That doesn't make sense.
Yes, it does.
I was listening to another podcast.
Doesn't it?
I don't know if you guys have heard like Mr. Sunday Movies, and it's a fantastic group of Aussie mates talking about movies. But they were mentioning that his accent came straight out of the 90s, where people made fun specifically of Greek Australian fish and chip shop owners, and that he was taking that. You know, you would see this in ads, and he was taking this performance and
So
like
maybe
putting
it's
it
not
on the
okay.
Marvel
So
screen.
he recorded every scene twice because Taika Waititi wasn't sold on the accent, so he made him do it in a British accent. So he filmed every scene with.
I'm so glad they went though for the Greek.
It was great. I mean, that scene where he
Because also
pops the
Zeus
clothes
is
off.
Greek, right?
Yeah.
That's the point. He didn't just, I mean, okay. Well, very interesting question. And maybe there are people, railing against their headphones as they listen to us talk and saying it's completely unacceptable and it was racist.
You say racist, I'm going to one-up you with sexist. Because why does Jane Foster have to die? Like, she literally becomes a god.
Because I guess she does in the books.
I know, but it's like...
That's the whole arc of the Mighty Thor.
No, it's dumb. I call fail, because why couldn't she survive? Like, she
had cancer.
She
No,
did, but she's in Valhalla now.
Actually, I did like that. I was all for that, because she shows up in the credits.
And
right?
hey, it's Idris Elba. Hello.
Yeah, she's alive in Valhalla and she's all happy, which I was all good with. I just think it's the same thing I felt with Black Panther when Michael B. Jordan's character dies as one of the few villains that die, and I'm like, why can't they just survive? And to my villains, Christian Bale I thought was fantastic.
He was amazing.
He needed more scenes.
And his creepy shadows were really quite scary.
And I love Christian Bale. He can do no wrong in a performative sense as far as I'm concerned, and he really elevates the film. And I love the fact that I think is very talented. I think he is able to play a menacing character still with a twinkle in his eye, but the twinkle does not make it parody, or it doesn't make it comedic. He is still sufficiently serious and frightening and committed, and I love that about him.
That scene where he's terrifying the kids with that twinkle, he's having a lot of fun, but he's still threatening.
It was so scary.
That doesn't undercut any of the drama.
Such a good performer.
Yeah.
Whereas there are so many people in this film just taking the piss.
I thought Natalie Portman, and I love Natalie Portman.
Yeah, I do.
She was not good in this movie. Which was trying to be like all cool and superhero. I was like, you think you're being funny?
Catchphrase thing, like
No, it wasn't funny at all. God bless her, it wasn't funny at all. And now, was it because it wasn't written funny, or Jane Foster's not funny, or Natalie's, or all three?
All of the above.
I know.
But going back to Christian Bale for a sec, isn't the opening of this movie just incredible?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Like cold open, no logos, nothing, and it's just this short story.
It's
about,
just Mad Max Fury Road.
a father grieving his dead daughter, and then is it Jonathan Berg who plays the god?
I don't know.
Oh,
From,
it's Johnny.
it's
Johnny Bro.
Bro from What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah, it is. He plays the sunshine god. Or whatever.
And it does a really good job of bringing the two tones together that really does set up the film. That's why Christian Bale's character works so well in that silly world, because it's there right from the start, and
then they bring in the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, for no reason.
I hate them anyway. I don't find them funny. I don't think that Chris Pratt is interesting. None of them. The stupid one who just goes Groot is so annoying.
I agree with you though. I didn't like the first, and I haven't even seen
Pointless.
the second one.
It's
Sarah,
like-
think of the children. They love Groot.
The children all got stolen.
And what was that subplot?
Okay,
QAnon wrote that subplot. What are you doing?
Okay, so I watched it and I was like, okay, they're taking the kids. Like, okay, that's just like the classic conspiracy theory thing. You're right. And it made me watch because I was in. We must have watched it. Yeah, it was when I was out of lockdown, but I was still staying at Josh's house where we had been isolating, and we decided to watch Chitty Chitty Bang Bang the next day. I was like, this is like, because the first one was the first one drew from Willy Wonka. This one drew from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Was still in the kids. And that movie has not aged well.
No.
We watched Sound of Music, which was fantastic and is still brilliant, and it's just a perfect, beautiful film. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is so weird. And you know that it's Broccoli, what's his name? Albert Broccoli, who did the James Bond films and Roald Dahl and all that. And Ian Fleming wrote Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. They spent so much money on that film that they were one of the 10 biggest films of the year, and they still didn't recuperate their costs. And talking about lots of money, I mean, that's the thing about Thor: Love and Thunder that I think I kind of enjoy it for, is that I can't believe that they made this movie. Like, I agree with you, Sarah, it is just infuriatingly like they're all having a great time at our expense. But not really, it's at Marvel's expense, because how much money did they pump into this stupid film?
Ridiculous. Look, I mean, you say Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and I say Dick Van Dyke, who can't do a proper accent. At least Chris Hemsworth, actually, is bloody good.
Yeah, and he commits that.
He's really good.
He's a great character.
He is a great character. He's a great character actor. And to be fair to him, he was not objectionable. He's doing what's on the page, and you know, he's
I
having.
think Tessa Thompson's great as well.
She's good, but her character is
She doesn't get
awful.
she doesn't get to do much.
Do you guys remember her character from Thor Ragnarok?
Yeah,
like she's such a good character, and she drives so much of the middle third of that movie. And in this one, she's kind of just bored with logistics and you know, running a country. And she goes on pointless adventures and gets stabbed and says goodbye.
Yeah, but isn't she there because now she gets to talk about her sexuality, and she doesn't get to act upon it, but she gets at least to have
such
some
queer baiting.
But the rock, he literally he dates a rock called Dwayne.
That's pretty funny.
Dwayne the Rock.
But you know, in the lead up, I remember a couple of years ago at Comic-Con, so maybe this is before COVID. They were asking Tessa Thompson, you know, what is Valkyrie doing now that she's king of Asgard? And she was like, well, my first order as king is to find a queen, and like all the audience went nuts. We're like, yeah, and yeah, there's so much of that stuff that feels like it was on the cutting room. I mean, she kisses a lady's hand and she talks about her girlfriend ? But that was it. That was it, and it just felt like Disney saying no.
Yeah. Well, the rainbow. I mean, that's always been there, right? But the rainbow bridge.
Yeah.
And also the fact that in the council there's a Maori queen or a Maori princess.
Yeah.
Now look, I mean, that felt to me. I can't work out what that feels to me like. Is it too? Is it too? Not too much, but is it not enough? Or is it token? Or is it just for the audience of Aotearoa?
Or of the above. Or
is it Taika actually inching into a space? Or I don't really know.
Again,
but it felt nothing.
When we talked about Thor Ragnarok, I'm pretty sure we brought this up. Like, it was such an amazing production to hear about the history as well. How you know, Taika came in on this huge Marvel project after directing what we do in the shadows, basically, because he did it concurrently with For the Wilderpeople. And you know, he and his team set up a whole production where it was very, you know, indigenous focused, and bringing in all these like both professional and amateur indigenous filmmakers from Australia to shadow a lot of the crew. And we talked about the colors of the spaceships and how so much of that was meaningful.
The whole narrative of
colonization and covering that up. And in this, I don't know. It just felt so directionless and rudderless.
So nothing.
I think that was intentional, right? He's like, we're just going to make a fun, silly film. It wasn't that fun for me, but it's made lots of money. I respect its consistency.
Yes, but it's making money is not a sign that it was good or that it worked, right? Because everybody went, we love Ragnarok, we're going to go.
And also...
you paid your money before you've decided whether the film was worth seeing.
It goes to show that Doctor Strange is actually making a lot more money than Thor 4.
Hey, I'm as much as I didn't like Doctor Strange, as much as this movie's a mess, I like that they're giving reins to the directors, because I would much rather laugh like this and enjoy these moments of spontaneity than see another saccharine, you know.
Yes.
I guess Elvis, right? We talked about Elvis last month and how that was very perfect and put together.
Yeah.
These movies do not feel perfect and put together. They feel like they're giving the reins over to the directors, which...
Yeah. No, you see, I'm not happy with that at all. I'm not. Look, I do hold people to high account, and because I do think, particularly with Marvel, I mean, I object so strenuously to the fact that for Doctor Strange, the multi thing, the expectation was that I should have watched a couple of TV series and several...
Homework.
Exactly. I think that's really rude, and I didn't do it, and I still had a relatively good time with that film. But I think Marvel's really naughty, and I therefore think it's super naughty to stick Taika in a position where he has to come up with another bottle of lightning.
Zeus's like
Right, and that it just felt like exploitative of the audience, because of course people are going to go, and as I say, Jeremy, I don't think you can say, well, it's made its money, blah blah blah, because it isn't until you've paid your money and seen the film that you go, actually, I don't think that was very good or worth my time or whatever.
I guess I you know, totally right. I just guess in terms of a system that produces films, I'd much rather a big studio like Marvel gives the reins to directors to try their craft than everything being carefully put together, which I guess we got the benefits of the last phase of Marvel, right? It was so carefully put together and every film was kind of contributing to it and it was great, but then it seems to have just stripped out that middle layer of cinema, which is good and a bit risky.
I think it's pivoting back to what DC is doing. I think DC obviously has not had the same successes as their distinguished counterparts at Marvel, but I think because they've been such a mess, like the movies have been really entertaining and interesting and different and
DC
fun.
ones?
Yeah, like because of trying to ape Marvel and failing, they instead come up with movies like The Suicide Squad and Joker and The Batman.
Yeah.
Just adding those to things. But like, I didn't like Joker very much. I liked Suicide Squad a lot and Batman was okay. But they're all very, very interesting creator-driven movies.
That's
like,
right.
And Marvel doesn't have that privilege because it so has to adhere to this template and to this ongoing storyline. I would much rather have 10 more Jokers than one more like Avengers movie.
Yeah,
so
I would agree.
So, and I loved Joker, but so obviously I would say that I would too. But I would too because it's proper acting, scripting, performance, story, drama, darkness. Yeah, not just a bunch of mates having a nice time.
Did you guys watch The Batman?
Yes.
Oh, yes? What do you think, Sarah?
I didn't absolutely love it at all. Whereas I love all Nolan's Batman films. And I'd gone into it knowing that it was super dark and super violent and blah, blah, blah. And I was just, ultimately, I was like, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because to me, it was just an auteur's Batman, right? It was Matt Reeves and doing his Matt Reeves thing, and I love that. It wasn't a perfect movie. There's a lot of places where it could have been a heck of a lot shorter, but I really appreciated what was being put on screen. I wish, as you say, Jeremy, like Marvel would take more risks with the stuff, and I guess they have with these last two movies.
Well, they have with Taika.
Yeah, and
but
with Sam
they obviously
Raimi.
liked it as well.
Yeah.
But so do you think he'll get another one?
Well, I think there'll be a fifth Thor film, whether he does it or not. I guess we'll
Did
have to
Kenneth
see.
Branagh do the first two?
No, he did the first one.
Alan Taylor did the second one from Game of Thrones.
Right.
And that was apparently just a production disaster. Like, they went through so many directors.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
That second one, lots of people hate it. I have a soft spot for it for two reasons. One, I always love Portal kind of action sequences, and also the Dark Elves with Chris Eccleston. I really
like Christopher Eccleston?
Yeah, I really like them.
I love anything that Chris Eccleston does.
Well, you're still got to watch The Leftovers, Sarah.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do gotta.
And on the note of TV series that Jeremy always goes on about, let's pivot to Cabin in
Lost.
the Woods.
Yeah.
Nice again, Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh, right.
Which is the Joss Whedon connection.
connection.
Well, the Avengers connection as well, isn't there?
Well, I mean, to me, the thing, and I will bounce off what you said earlier, Sarah. In 2011, Cabin in the Woods was my favorite movie of the year. Like, I raved about that movie. I love that movie so much. I went to see it twice in the cinemas. Watching it again, I think it totally holds up. I think it's an amazing picture, even a little bit dated in places because it's a little bit snide in that Whedon kind of way. And of course, we've now known Whedon to be not a nice guy.
Yeah. And we've seen Bradley Whitford be not a nice guy as well so many times, but he's so good at it.
I want to see just a spin-off with Bradley Whitford and Richard Jenkins just doing, and Amy Acker as well, doing their thing.
I love Amy Acker.
Yeah.
So the three of them is like bureaucrats. Like, okay, let's just take care of this.
Yeah.
I love Joss Whedon, as you know. I love Amy Acker because she's in heaps of his stuff. A lot of the actors in this film are Joss Whedon kind of staples of his TV shows. When I saw this in 2011, I didn't really like it that much, and for the same reasons I didn't enjoy it the other day. I just find the play really, I don't know. I feel like it's been done better in other films. Okay. I just did not find it interesting.
Did you find it like too obvious? Or?
Yeah.
What, the manipulation, the puppetry sort of aspect of it?
And just like the kind of meta quality of like we're playing with genre and we're playing with these kids.
Right.
I think the biggest issue for me is the film is only interesting when it's with the people underground. And the moment that it's with the kids in the cabin, I could care less. Like, I don't care about their story. I don't care about
And yet that's where the slasher parts come. You
Yeah.
know, the guy standing close to the window
Yeah.
that's open behind him, and you're like, step away from that, and then and all that stuff.
I guess I feel like the Scream films do a much better job of having their cake and eating it too, and playing with these tropes. But still, you like that latest Scream movie, and I really cared about those characters, and I was excited about seeing what they did with the tropes. And so, I just it doesn't really land for me, and I do really like that they commit to the end of the world. Like, I think that's a fun bit. And I do really like seeing all the different creatures killing everybody at the end. I don't like, and I love Sigourney Weaver, you know I love Sigourney Weaver. I don't like that she just appears at the end. It's a little bit silly.
It should have been Jamie Lee Curtis, I'm sorry.
True.
Maybe Jamie Lee Curtis just turned it down, but it just felt really odd to have a sci-fi icon come in
That's
in
a
a
good
horror
point.
movie.
Yeah, well, I think that makes sense that they would have asked her to do it. And I just, like...
But on a first viewing, for me, Cabin in the Woods, each of the ways, well, no, not all of the ways, but each of the ways that the young people die was terribly, terribly clever and unexpected. So most notably with dear old Chris Hemsworth on the motorbike, and you think, okay, he's going to make it, and then the thing, and you're like, oh, I can't believe it.
Can I just say with that scene, watching it back in 2011 and watching it now, it's very, very difficult to think of another scene in this kind of genre, you know, that really sets up and pays off a joke, a horrifying joke, so well. Because early on in the movie, you see the eagle smack into the barrier, right? So you know something
But you don't know what it is.
You don't know what it is. But when Chris Hemsworth is gearing out for his bike jump, he's making this heroic speech. I don't know about you guys, but I thought, oh my god, like he's not going to make it because of the barrier. Like you think back, the eagle.
I didn't the first time. I didn't remember that at all.
And so his heroic speech is just complete, like it's a bluff. And it's done in such heroic bluster. You're like, he's dead. He's totally dead. And the audience, like, at least I went in like knowing what the gag was going to be. And when they pulled it off, it was just such a beautiful, like, this is the setup and the payoff. They did it.
Maybe that's my issue with this film, is that I just didn't feel that, you know, and I feel like and nothing surprised me in this movie when I watched it the first time. And maybe it's because I've just watched hours and hours and hours of Joss Whedon and multiple shows. You know, I've watched Buffy and Angel and Dollhouse and Firefly, and you know, so I've seen him and Drew Goddard play with genre in so many different ways. I maybe got to know their language, and I did feel, maybe that's what it was, I did feel like this was their greatest hits of their plot points that they had played around with in TV.
Right.
So
Interesting.
Maybe I'm just trying to unpack why I just don't feel the same way as you. It came at a time with like I think about Terminator Salvation. You had the sequence with Helena Bonham Carter appearing at the end. It reminds me of that with Sigourney Weaver. You've got the Tucker and Dale versus Evil with the kids thinking there's a cool idea, right? They think that they're being terrorized by these hillbillies, but they're actually accidentally killing themselves all over the place. Right. So they're running away from someone and fall into a pit and get stabbed, and thinking that they've, you know, these unwitting hillbillies. So I don't know. It just doesn't land with me. What
do we think about Chris Hemsworth, given that he is our tiny incy-wincy intersecting set for these two films?
He's good in Cabin in the Woods. I was surprised he was there for much longer. You made a comment in our chat, William, about like, he's barely even in the film. So I went into it thinking, he's going to die. But he like we just said, he doesn't die until kind of the end of the second act, I think.
And that was filmed before Thor, like Thor 1? Because Thor 1 came out around, 2010, 2011?
Yeah.
That's a good point. I feel as though the film was him, or even if it was made before he was the big guy that he became in Thor, I'm sure of it.
Because
he's just one of the ensemble. Because there's also the New Zealand actress, should have looked it up, the one who kisses the one who makes out with the boar's head on the wall.
Anna Hutchinson? Is she a New Zealander?
Yeah, she totally is.
Wow.
So I feel as though in Cabin in the Woods, Chris was just another guy.
And he's real good.
He's really good.
Yeah, he is good.
He plays the part well. And again, that heroic speech, I think, is I keep going back to it, but the comedic high point of the movie.
Well, and you're right. I mean, I didn't know the first time that he was going to plunge into that wall and die, but you're absolutely right that whenever somebody makes a "I'll be right back" speech, you know that's the end of that, and you'll never see them again. I feel like in Cabin in the Woods, There were so many great faces, like Bradley Whitford and Richard Jenkins, we've continued to see, obviously, and Chris Hemsworth. But Kristen Connolly, who's she's wonderful.
The final girl.
She is really good.
And
I'll give
I
that.
don't remember seeing a whole bunch of her after that.
No.
Can we talk about Fran Kranz?
Yes, so Fran Kranz is the nerdy guy with the bong who's smoking all
he's
the weed.
brilliant because he's Topher in Dollhouse, which
He's
is
wonderful.
But he have you guys seen Mass?
No.
He's the writer and director of Mass.
Good lord.
Which is like, could not be any more different from
So
Cabin in
Mass,
the
which
Woods.
I can't wait to see, am I right? It's a four-hander.
Yes.
And it's two couples, and they're
possible spoilers for Mass?
okay.
If you don't want to go.
Anyway, never mind.
Yes.
But anyway,
it's a very
fully drama.
intense drama.
Yes.
Yeah,
Good
very
lord.
uncomfortable to sit
Did
through.
he make that?
Yeah, he wrote and directed it, which is like, but he's the stoner from Cabin in the Woods.
Have you seen Joss Whedon's Much Ado About Nothing?
I have, and I love it.
Yeah, it's really good because
And
Amy
Acker.
Acker's.
And he also, is he
Clark Gregor's in that as well.
Is he Claudio?
It's all of Whedon's
Yeah.
people. And I'm just thinking, he must be. Let me have a look. Well, he was in the Dark Tower, which was not a good
I think
film.
he's Claudio in Much Ado.
I think you're right. It's really good. You are right. He's Claudio, Much Ado About Nothing.
And he's wonderful. And Nathan Fillion, of course, is in it, and he's in Firefly. And
I love that film because you know that was born out of Whedon doing Shakespeare readings at his house,
Right.
with friends.
And then they shot that in his house.
Yeah.
And also, Much Ado is one of my two favourite Shakespeare's.
Nice.
So, and I thought it was a wonderful adaptation.
Yeah, and it's quite cool to see these TV actors,
Yeah.
you know, tackle Shakespeare and see
In a
them have a great
completely
time.
modern sort of environment.
Yeah.
Setting. So, yeah.
Well, I'm sorry you didn't enjoy Cabin in the Woods as much as we did, Jeremy. It sounds like I think it's for me what differentiates Cabin in the Woods and Thor 4 Love and Thunder. I mean, obviously, very, very different sensibilities. I mean, they're both, primarily comedic. Like, it's going for laughs. But to me, Cabin in the Woods, the entire thing has a point, right? And they hammer home the point at the end.
As opposed to the hammering in Thor.
Nice, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Thor just feels, and I said this in our group chat, it feels like they knew where they want to end up. With Jane dying because of Mjolnir, and like Thor adopting Gor's kid, and he is love and she is love and he is thunder. Like that was lovely. I really like that. But getting to that end point, it just seemed like they had no idea where to go. It's like, it's COVID. We don't have a lot of the production team around. They just film a ton of stuff and see what happens. We'll replace the backgrounds.
And the scenes with the kids in the thingy
Yeah.
felt totally structureless, pointless, okay, now we'll get you to do this.
Yeah.
Blah, I mean, boring.
I think that's the way that he writes, though. Taika Waititi's talked about, he just, and I think it's a Sundance lesson that, they advise, which is he thinks of a whole lot of great sequences and then he puts them up and then he tries to think about how they stitch together. Which, can work really well, or it can be a bunch of kids with a teddy bear and lightning eyes and CGI black shadow monsters. Yeah.
Because like in Cabin in the Woods, I mean, it's a commentary, right? It's a meta commentary on the state of the horror industry and how everything is stayed. Even J horror is stayed. I love the J horror world with now the evil is defeated and that's become such a meme nowadays. I really like the point that the creators are talking about, which is in order to kind of have new horror and have horror that means something to someone, you need to destroy the old world. You can't rely on people's love of the old tropes. You got to come up with new stuff, which I guess is what A24 is.
Yeah.
And of course, it being represented by a giant demonic hand, I guess, representing the audience, crushing everything. It's the cherry on top of the sundae for me. Really fun stuff.
Does that happen? Is there a big hand?
Yes, a huge hand comes out of the facility, kills everyone, and like crushes the camera, and that's the end of the movie.
Oh, I don't remember that.
At the end of Cabin in the Woods?
Yeah. It's a giant hand. It's a shadowy hand that...
I don't quite remember
Because
that.
they share a joint. The two survivors share a joint, and then just goes...
I
directed
often
by
don't
Drew
remember
Goddard.
the last
Ah.
film. Huh.
So making a point, guys, making a point.
See, I love the aspects of Cabin in the Wood that I love is the, as you say, the behind the scenes or the underground or the whatever, the office spaceness of it. Oh, well, you can't vote on so and so because the people in accounting or maintenance always vote for that, and I love
that is the best parts of
the ordinariness of it. Okay, guys, are you still here? Right? Okay, do you want to get a cup of coffee? It's home time. The ordinariness, the banality of office work with men with their sleeves rolled up as they're doing a walk and talk down the corridor, only to then turn into a room to orchestrate the gross murder of 5 innocent young stereotypes. I think that's brilliant.
There's that scene where they're celebrating with champagne. You see Kristen Connolly's character being basically murdered on the big
in the
screen.
background, and they're like, "Well done, everybody, good show." It's brilliant. So can I just say, did you recognise, of course, that Bradley Whitford was in that other wonderful, clever, more recent parody, not that much more recent parody of horror films, Get Out?
Of course, he's the dad.
Yeah.
And so,
With Catherine Keener.
Right, and so Bradley often, because of his voice and his way, I love his acting, but he often seems to play versions of himself or versions on a theme, which I don't mind at all. But I think, bloody good on him for being in at least 2, this type of meta sort of genre films that I enjoy.
I love Get Out. Have you seen...
I've not seen Nope yet.
No, we haven't. I haven't either. In fact, we were going to do Nope for this month, weren't we, with The Thing, which we still might. We'll see how we go.
Yeah.
Seeing as I've now been forced to watch The Thing, and you've only been banging on about it the whole time I've known you, then I am ready to discuss it.
I can't help again just come back to Scream. Have you seen the new Scream yet?
Yes. I raved about it.
Yeah.
It's heaps of fun.
Just like that sequence where, I've forgotten her name, but
where she's watching the movie and you're watching,
It's so good, and none of it's the original Scream film. Yeah. It's so clever. I mean, that's what I think Cabin's trying to do, but it just doesn't.
Man, for me, Jeremy, I think that scene in Scream it tries a little bit too hard, where I think Cabin doesn't. So maybe it's just different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
Because the setup of that scene, I just remember in Scream being a little bit clunky. It's like the camera angle, all that stuff.
I need to watch that again.
Let's talk about Thor some more, because I think there's so much stuff. There's so much stuff, as you say, Jimmy, like crammed into this movie. Maybe it shouldn't have been crammed in. I don't know, but one of the things that really stuck out to me was the huge flips in tone, where you would go from like Chris Hemsworth is such a himbo, funny jokes. Taika Waititi says something not particularly pithy, but we think it's funny. I think
you think it's funny, yeah.
And then suddenly it cuts to like Gore the God Butcher in black and white, like menacing children with horrible scars and tattoos,
and the penguin kind of black fluid
coming out of his mouth.
Batman Returns,
and then it cuts to Natalie Portman in My Cancer drama, and it's super downbeat and genuinely sad in parts, like when she's talking to Kat Dennings, and it's like, well, how long do I have? And it's like, man, this movie goes places. And I don't know if I like it going places, but I kind of appreciate it.
I loved having Kat Dennings back and Stellan Skarsgård, even if it was via video link, but it worked. But Kat Dennings is so much fun. And those three are such a presence from the first 2 Thor films. It's quite nice to see them come back in the 4th one. Do you think that Natalie Portman did this movie because of Taika Waititi?
I think so. I think she saw the 3rd one and was like, oh my gosh, this is actually really great. I want back in.
Yeah.
But also she hasn't done anything for a while, and I don't know. I mean, like, I hear you, etc. But not necessarily. But I mean, the tone thing I do find challenging, and always have with Taika's films.
Yeah.
I think in some of his films it works better and neater. This just feels very, very sloppy to me.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is, there are comparisons to be drawn with pretty much every other Taika film in terms of its having comedic aspects as well as
and then there was like door slam movement. I think back to Wilderpeople with the death of
absolutely
the mother character, and it's like, oh my god, no warning, you're just thrust into it as the audience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And obviously Boy has its sad
Well,
moments.
boy weaves its sadness through it, doesn't it? It's not as sort of. There's a moment where you realise there's those shots of the mother, dying, and this, which are really, you get you. But then it weaves in the more deeper sadness, which was the father character is just not around, and he's just a complete dropkick. Yeah, but I do think there is an element of that with the ending. We talked about the strength at the start. I think the ending sequence in that pool of magicalness with Gore the God Killer was quite a lovely moment.
Yeah.
My thing was, though, I was just like, oh my gosh, there's so much opportunity for them to just weave in a plot device that keeps Jane Foster alive. They needed her to die for Thor, and I just was like, there's a little bit...
But hang on, that's the whole point, right? Like Thor, he gives up the chance of saving Jane, and Jane gives up the chance of saving herself for Gore to make that decision. So I think that was pretty good writing, because at the end of the day, Gore needs to decide what is right and what is wrong, whereas Jane basically sacrifices that choice, right? Am I speaking out of my butt?
No, I just am like thinking about the genderness, the gender equalityness of it all. Why is it that it's just so often the woman has to die, right? It's the whole fridging thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the woman has to die to progress the story, and I'm like, if that was Thor with some sort of illness, he would absolutely be saved by the end of the film.
But isn't this the Thor you said followed Avengers Endgame?
Yeah.
And wasn't Avengers Endgame the one where half of the entire universe died?
Yeah.
So Marvel's not shy in going there and killing people off.
It's not about that. It's just that there are clearly untouchables in this universe, and then there are your Jane Fosters that come back for one movie, get a little bit of a chance to be a superhero, and then they're dead. Same with the Michael B. Jordan in Black Panther. The same with Wanda in Doctor Strange. It seems to be it just frustrates me who gets to stay alive.
Sure.
And it's clearly a
contractual thing.
It's like a bigger, and it's like a systemic thing, right? If you look at the people the woman and it's just, it doesn't sit right with me. Loki, for instance, flippin' dies all the time, comes back to life, survives, because Tom Hiddleston is, the one that people love, and I just get a little bit frustrated with the double nature of everything.
Sure.
Fair enough. I didn't feel like it was fridging at all. I thought it was pretty true to the character. Again, I haven't read much of The Mighty Thor, but I do know how it ends, which is basically a similar way to how this ends, right? Where she understands her power, but she also understands that in order to do the right thing, she needs to give up that power, or the power of choice in this case.
Right. Speaking as the non-comic book reader, ignorant person around the table, I didn't understand at all how all of a sudden she's wearing his costume and running around and having those superpowers. And because I missed that, I don't know what, memo, chapter beat, or whatever the heck it was, I wouldn't say it distracted me from the whole film, and then I spent the whole time being perplexed, but I was absolutely nonplussed.
That's a magic hammer. I think that's all you need to know. It's magic.
It's just like,
she gains muscles and like a cool
but this
ass
is
outfit.
Stupid. I mean, she's a human. Look, I loved Thor 1, and I was fine with Thor 2, and I loved their deity-human relationship. There's no enjoyment for me, and suddenly, even if she is dying, in suddenly making her some sort of conflicted god or goddess or mighty Thor. Anyway, didn't get it, didn't like it.
Yeah, I hear.
Yeah.
Right, well on that note, final thoughts. William, just say something.
All right. I still love Cabin in the Woods. I think... I'm going to use this word. I think it's a masterpiece. I think it's a masterpiece.
Right.
Yes.
Nice.
Might be contentious on this podcast, but I had so much fun revisiting it. I've watched it a couple of times since 2011, and every time it's like, this movie is just so much fun. It's heaps of fun, and I love how it ends. Love the cast. Good stuff. Thor was such a mess. Again, I kind of agree with you, Jeremy. Like, I appreciate the messiness of it all. But I think the one thing that really sticks out to me, and I don't think I've felt this in any Taika Waititi movie, is just, it's not funny.
That's
like,
true.
It's not funny. funny.
I can't believe we haven't said that sooner. It's not funny, apart from the romance between the women.
Yeah.
And I think Russell Crowe was.
Yes, he was
pretty
funny.
funny.
Okay.
And I loved at the end where his son Hercules is revealed to be Roy Kent. Yeah. It's like,
that was fan service of the most annoying, also exploitative.
Hey,
anyway,
look,
sorry,
it's that guy you know from that other thing.
Yeah, from that other show
Roy
that's
Kent.
really now. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, William, your final thought.
Yeah, so it's just, it's a movie full of jokes and goofs and gags, but so little of it made me laugh, and I don't know why that is. I usually find Taika's writing to be genuinely like gut busting.
Yeah.
Again, like what's it called? What We Do in the Shadows, I think is one of the funniest movies of
I do too.
all time.
I do too.
And something just happened where the magic wasn't there. So that's Thor for me.
Werewolves, not swearwolves.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel what I feel about Thor: Love and Thunder. I guess that I did definitely laugh at those moments, like you mentioned, Sarah, with the hammer and the jealousy of the axe. I definitely enjoyed Russell Crowe, but I also just laughed a lot at the whole meta silliness of it all. Like when the kids started fighting, I was like, what is this movie doing? This is just so stupid. I can't believe they've spent money on this. I can't believe I'm sitting in a packed theatre with this. I can't believe I just spent $25 to just sit in a recliner chair for this, you know? So I don't know if I'll ever watch it again. It ain't no Ragnarok. Ragnarok for me is one of the greatest films that came out of the last decade. This was not that at all. I have already expressed how I feel about Cabin in the Woods. I just didn't enjoy it again this time. Josh, my boyfriend, and I watched it together, and he was like, "This is terrible." I was like, "I know, I have to watch it." So I'm sorry, team. I don't connect with it. I don't get it. And I love all of the people that are involved in it. I know you usually love you know how much I love all their stuff they do. So that's me.
Well, as I've said, I think that Thor was just there to inveigle people out of their money, and I feel for you. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I saw this at a screening. I didn't have to pay to see Thor. So why am I complaining? I'm complaining on your behalf. You have to pay
$25 for reclining chairs.
Exactly, and of course all of the confectionery and stuff that people buy. Now look, hopefully some people had a better time in the cinema with it. I have to admit, I didn't adore Ragnarok. I think I appreciated it enough, but I didn't love it like the way people do and that English teachers teach it, and I'm just like, it blows my mind. However, I now feel like I want to go back and watch Ragnarok just to see what the fuss was about. This, to me, felt like it was lazy, and I really resent laziness from people who have proven themselves to be so brilliant. And it's interesting, we haven't bothered to talk about Jojo Rabbit and his other stranger choices, but I do think Taika is a genius, and I think his work is splendid, and this absolutely wasn't part of it. So I don't think that's forgivable. Cabin in the Woods I do think is terrifically clever to this day. Mainly for me, it's Bradley, it's Richard, it's the People Underground's performances, and the very, very witty and thoughtful and clever and intentional writing. And that would be my view on those.
One final thing to bounce off what you said, Sarah, about Taika's weirder work. I do appreciate that in Thor there's an extended sequence which is basically a riff on Eagle versus Shark. I don't know how they did it, but they did it in the Thor movie as part of the greater Marvel universe.
Which part is that?
I enjoy that. That's when it flashes back to Thor and Jane's like romance.
Oh yes.
And they're dressed up as crazy. Like I think he's a hot dog and she's an alien with a chest busted like alien crew member.
Yeah, that's cute.
And it's just super awkward, and it's like, okay, you got me, movie.
That's
good.
cute.
It is like a greatest hits of his previous work, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of Cinema in Context. If you enjoyed our podcast, then please share it with your film-loving friends. You can listen to Cinema in Context through SoundCloud or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, and Amazon Music. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram, which are great places to let us know what you think of this episode or give us suggestions for future films to discuss and compare. Look out for our next episode in a month's time, and until then, no mai. Nice team.
There's a lot of energy in that one.